2 decades ago, a pivotal moment in my life unfolded at a gas station when my parents decided to leave me as part of their misguided philosophy of tough love. It was intended to be a cruel test to see how long it would take me to find my way home, but they underestimated my resilience. This morning, I found 39 missed calls from them, and the memories of that fateful day came rushing back, vivid as ever. The scent of gasoline and the oppressive heat of that summer day still linger in my mind. My parents, Gerald and Denise, were firm believers in a parenting style that emphasized hardship as a means to build character. They often framed their actions as life lessons, pushing me to my limits. I would be roused from deep sleep at 3 a.m. to complete chores I had neglected, or I would be forced to walk to school in the pouring rain, even when they had a car at their disposal. Their methods were extreme, and I often found myself questioning their love. That July morning started off like any other during a family trip to visit my sister Sabrina at her college, located about 4 hours away from home. I was lounging in the back seat, half asleep, and listening to music on my iPod, when Dad announced that we needed to stop for gas. We pulled into a desolate gas station off I-95, and I was commanded to get him a coffee. I complied, albeit lethargically, only to return to find that the car was gone. Initially, I thought they had merely moved to another pump, but as I looked around, I saw the familiar silhouette of our old Camry merging onto the highway, leaving me behind. Suddenly, a text from my mom appeared on my phone. "Let's see how long it takes you to get home. Consider this a lesson in problem solving." Confused and anxious, I attempted to call them, but my call was met with voicemail. After a frustrating 20 minutes, another text message came through. "Don't bother calling. Your father says you need to figure this out yourself. See you when you make it home." At that moment, I was struck by a sense of abandonment that I had never felt before. This wasn't the first instance of their harsh discipline impacting my life. Just 2 years earlier, after I received AC+ in chemistry, my parents had locked me out of the house on a frigid February night, believing that exposure to cold would improve my academic focus. I had to break into the garage to find a place to sleep. Standing alone at that gas station, something shifted inside me. I looked down at the steaming coffee in my hand, and a wave of determination washed over me. I had about $140 saved from my summer job at the local pool, and although I was without my backpack, I had my wallet and my iPod. I approached the cashier and asked for directions to the nearest bus station, which was about 2 miles away. "Are you okay, kid?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "Yeah," I replied, forcing a smile. "Just need to make a call." I reached out to my Aunt Lola, my mother's sister, who had become estranged from the family after my parents disapproved of her helping me with the phone when they had taken mine away. Upon hearing my frantic story, Aunt Lola was alarmed. She quickly sprang into action, calling a local taxi service to pick me up and arranging for a bus ticket online to get me to her. "Get yourself here," she instructed with urgency. As I boarded the bus, a feeling of liberation enveloped me. My parents had filed a missing persons report, but that became irrelevant when Aunt Lola initiated the process of my emancipation. I completed my education while living with her, obtained my GED, and went on to build a fulfilling life. I honed my skills in fixing things, started my own construction business, and eventually created a family of my own. I believe that chapter of my life was closed until yesterday, when my office phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in 20 years. I chose not to answer, but the weight of those 39 missed calls loomed heavily on my mind. Among them, 3 were from Sabrina, my sister, who I hadn't communicated with in 2 decades. The first voicemail I listened to was from Sabrina, her voice trembling as she pleaded, "Scott, please pick up. Mom and Dad found you. They're spiraling. Just call me back, okay?" The subsequent messages from my parents were a mix of guilt and demands. "Your mother is sick," one message stated. "How dare you abandon your family?" I sat in my truck, feeling overwhelmed, and finally made the decision to reach out to Sabrina. We arranged to meet at Denny's the following morning. When she arrived, she looked remarkably similar to how I remembered her, though older. She had the same nervous habit of shredding napkins as she spoke. "They're losing the house," she divulged anxiously. Dad's gambling habits and Mom's maxed-out credit cards had plunged them into a dire situation. They needed $50,000 to avoid foreclosure. As the waitress set down our coffee, I listened attentively while Sabrina detailed their decline into chaos. "They're still our parents," she said softly, attempting to evoke a sense of familial loyalty. "No," I responded firmly. "They stopped being my parents at that gas station. You're still hoping they'll change." When my mom called again, I opted to block their number and picked up the tab for our breakfast. "Whatever they do next, don't call me," I warned Sabrina. Let them fall. Upon returning to my office, I was greeted with 27 new messages, many from family members who had been contacted by my parents, painting me as a heartless son. However, I had spent the prior 24 hours gathering my own information. Their mortgage was held by a bank I had previously worked with, and they were already 3 months behind on payments, with foreclosure proceedings underway. They anticipated that I would be manipulated into providing financial support, but I had scheduled a meeting with my lawyer for the following morning. I was no longer that scared 16-year-old. I was ready to confront the truth and demonstrate the consequences of their actions. The next day, I faced my parents in my office. They arrived looking aged and worn, dressed in their Sunday best, an unusual sight given their circumstances. Mom broke down in tears upon seeing me, but I quickly set the tone for our meeting. "You didn't spend 20 years looking for me because you miss me. You found me because you need something," I stated, my voice steady. Their emotional appeals revealed their financial struggles, exactly what I had anticipated. I informed them that I had purchased their mortgage debt at auction, and that they had 30 days to vacate the property. As security escorted them out, I felt a profound sense of satisfaction. I had meticulously documented the years of emotional abuse, and now I had the evidence needed to expose their true nature to the family. In the days that followed, I sent out mass emails to my relatives, sharing everything I had collected over the years. The responses came flooding in, and Sabrina informed me that the narrative my parents had spun was unraveling. I moved forward with plans to demolish their house and replace it with affordable housing, which I named after Aunt Lola, the woman who had taken me in when I needed it most. My parents attempted to rally the neighbors against me, but many remembered the cries of a child who had suffered.